All right, it's your boy Spank Dog, aka Puffinstein at YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You already know. Let's get right into it. All right, people. So free agencies here. There's a lot of things going on right now in the NBA. They just confirmed that LeBron will not be going back to LA, and he's gonna take his talents elsewhere. Um, there's a lot of talk about him linking up with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green in Golden State, and they said that there's rumors that they want to bring Anthony Davis to Golden State as well. So it would be like a big four, but of superstars that they're not exactly young, especially LeBron. You know, um, all of the other players are younger. Draymond Green and Anthony Davis, especially. Steph would be, I believe, the second oldest, and LeBron would be the oldest. Um, with that many IQs on one team, if their athleticism and energy are still somewhat there, they could make a run for sure. The IQs. Steph on the same team as LeBron, it'd be crazy. But like I said, age matters. You know what I'm saying? You're going for the title. You've seen Jalen Brunson and the Knicks win it as a team. A lot of people never thought a team that looked like that would win it. I'm in NYC and we won it. You know what I'm saying? And it's the best thing ever regarding sports for me, because I love baseball and football, but basketball is my number one sport. And the Knicks mean probably the most to me in sports. Now that we got Brooklyn, I love Brooklyn. I love the Brooklyn Nets like that also, but the Knicks got a special place in my heart. But back to the topic. Um, Another thing I wanted to mention was what's going on with Jalen Brown, you know. But NBA free agency officially begins today at 6 o'clock. This is when teams can start negotiating and reaching agreements with free agents and other teams. Contracts can become official starting Sunday, July 6th. Um, Important thing is trades and free agency are not the same thing. Free agency is about players who are available to sign. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about some of the trades that have already took place also. Regarding the Jalen Brown controversy, Jalen Brown called the last season his favorite season, not best season. People get that confused. And regarding the fact that they didn't win the championship, a lot of people were like, how is it your favorite season? So, it kind of blew up. You know what I'm saying? What's going on right now? Even though the Celtics were eliminated early and Jason Tatum's health, because when Jason Tatum was injured for the playoffs, it had nothing to do with his Achilles tear. So his Achilles, thank God, is fine. But he was it was knee inflammation. Don't quote me on that. See something. They said Jalen Brown was reportedly included in Boston's failed pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Celtics have reportedly asked for at least 4 first-round picks in some Jalen. The Celtics have reportedly asked for at least 4 first-round picks in some Jalen Brown trade discussions. Now you got to remember, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum won it, and that's not too long ago. You understand what I'm saying? Like them as a tandem, I don't know if they should break that up. You get what I'm saying? Unless there's things going on that we're not seeing. You know what I mean? So, we're gonna move on to trades that already happened. All right, trades that already took place. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis went to the Miami Heat. The Heat received Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis. The Bucks received Tyler Herro, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparis Jakuchonis, a 2026 number 13 pick, a 2031 first round pick, a 2033 first round pick, a 2030 pick swap, and a 2033 second round pick. So a lot of you people already know Giannis went to Miami. Right now, I don't even know who's the second star on Miami after Giannis. You know what I'm saying? So I have a feeling a lot of things are gonna come. Some people, like I said, they're saying also back to the LeBron thing. A lot of people were asking if it would hurt Steph's legacy if he teamed up with LeBron. Me personally, I don't think so, especially because of the ages. It's not like they're teaming up in their primes. This is LeBron's final run for sure. If he signs a multi-year contract or whatever, it's not going to be another contract after this. I don't believe. I don't think he's going to be playing at 44 years old. The comments, I'll get to them in a second. I just want to keep it going. I'll check to see if there's any comments in a second. Oh, LaMelo Ball goes to the Timberwolves. That's something I wanted to talk about. LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards, they're two of my favorite players. And we're going to get to see Ant-Man and LaMelo Ball play on the same team. You got to remember that LaMelo Ball came out in 2020, 2021, and so did Anthony Edwards. And Anthony Edwards was the number 1 pick that year. LaMelo Ball, I believe, was the 3rd pick that year. Yeah, they picked James Wiseman over LaMelo Ball. So, but anyway, James Wiseman hasn't done anything, and that's 6 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards seem to be the top 2 players in that draft. They're about to play together. LaMelo Ball, last year, they limited his usage because they wanted to get him a full season. He has had injury troubles. So, but last year he did really good. His shooting percentage could have been higher, but other than that, the last 38 games of the season, I believe the Charlottes were 28-10. And that's a really serious record if you think about it. That's what Josiah brought up, the time where Gilbert looked like he got annoyed with him. But Josiah was right. It kept going on. 28-10 for the last 38 games of the season. LaMelo Ball is a star. He's had such a rough start, but when you talk about like players that look special, he looks super special. His height, to be able to handle the ball and shoot, he got a little bit of hops. At that height, it's special. He's 6'8", All right. So with that being said, we're gonna see what Ant-Man and LaMelo can do together. I'm excited to see that. Ja Morant went to the Portland Trail Blazers. They have a lot of guards. They got Scoot Henderson. They got Damian Lillard. But you never know. There's sometimes people think that a team has too many of a certain position when the season starts. Being heavy in that position sometimes could be a good thing. You bring guys in and out, if you have a deep bench, it's a good thing. And having a lot of guards isn't always necessarily a bad thing. I think it's time for Ja Morant to shine again. I'm praying for the kid. I'm hoping that, that whatever happened where he got in trouble and then got hurt or whatever, I'm hoping that doesn't keep him from coming back and becoming a superstar. Big shout out to Ja Morant. I'm rooting for him. I'm definitely rooting for him. A lot of people forget that when these players come into the league, they're 19, 20, 21, 22, and he's young. I hope he bounces back from everything that took place. So we're gonna go on to Miles Bridges going to the Phoenix Suns. The Suns received Miles Bridges, a 2029 first round pick and a 2027 second round pick, while the Hornets received Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and a 2033 first round pick. This is something I want to see also because Miles Bridges was also on the Hornets with LaMelo Ball, and also there was controversy there. Um, Miles Bridges had gotten into some sort of domestic dispute, and it altered his trajectory. Like he was when Miles Bridges got into the situation, he was destroying it. I forgot exactly what happened. He did he get suspended? Let's look it up. When Miles Bridges got into the domestic situation, how did it affect his basketball status? All right, it says the domestic violence incident cost Miles Bridges significant playing time, a multi-million dollar contract extension, and his longtime spot with the Charlotte Hornets. Following his June 22 arrest, Bridges' career status was heavily impacted in several key ways. All right. So, but to make a long story short, let me see if there's anything important. I'm not really trying to highlight, things that people moved on from. It was a 30-game suspension. When you get a 30-game suspension, it's going to affect everything. So he got a 30-game suspension. Hold on one second, too. And it definitely affected the way he was playing. I wanted to pull something up. All right. There goes my boy, Miles Bridges. I only utilize cards that I own. So because when you do live streams or when you do content, you want to utilize everything original. So, when I came up last time, I had used by mistake a logo, Madison Square Garden of the Knicks, something like that. And when I went to stream to Facebook, it wouldn't, it was telling me I had to delete it because of copyright infringement. So I'm trying to keep everything original. So anything that you see is mine or owned by me or originally created. With that being said, since we're talking about Miles Bridges, I felt it was it only made sense that I would pull up a picture of the brother. That's his 2018-19 Prism rookie. At one point it was worth more than it is now. I bought it for $1.50 because I believe he's gonna go up. But at one point you had to pay $10 for that. So, but back to the ranch. Phoenix adds Miles Bridges with Charlotte, while Charlotte continues reshaping its roster after also moving LaMelo. This was reported as Phoenix and Charlotte swapping high-level role players, with Suns getting Bridges plus a 2029 first round and 2027 first and second, and the Hornets getting Allen, O'Neal, and a 2033 first. Charlotte did not just move one star, they moved LaMelo and Bridges, then collected future assets. All right, so I wouldn't say no, actually, the reason the Hornets moved Bridges and LaMelo is because they still have what's his name? Con Knipple. I forget his name. And they also have Brandon Miller. So the Hornets are straight. You know what I'm saying? They can build off of those two. To be honest with you, I would have never gave up neither of those two. You know, I don't know if they were gonna cost the Hornets a lot of money to keep LaMelo and Miles Bridges, but I think if you would have built around LaMelo and Miles Bridges, you could have had a contender. Remember, they went 28-10 for the last 38 games of the season. That's with LaMelo leading the charge. Brandon Miller was dealing with a shoulder injury, but he was on and off the court throughout the season. All right, so we're gonna go to the next trade. The next big trade that happened was Julius Randle going to the Brooklyn Nets. You know, that's a good thing for a New Yorker like myself because Michael Porter Jr. is there, and now we got Julius Randle. Julius Randle and Michael Porter Jr. together, I believe, could make some noise. I got love for Julius Randle. He was the beginning of this whole Knicks movement. You know, we were bad until Julius Randle rolled up. You get what I'm saying? And after Julius Randle rolled up, that's when the Knicks finally started getting a team. Even though they traded him for Towns, you know, Julius Randle, I got a lot of love for him. Big shout out to Julius Randle and what he did for the Knicks, man. You know, and I think Julius Randle and Michael Porter Jr. together could make some noise. I'm glad that Michael Porter Jr. got off the Nuggets and finally proved to the world that he could average 26 points a game. You know, Michael Porter Jr. special. Let's see what him and Julius Randle could do together on the Nets. You know, and the Timberwolves. Let me read this. This was a 3-team trade with Minnesota, Brooklyn, and Chicago. Brooklyn gets Julius Randle and moves up to number 28. Chicago gets Nick Claxton. Minnesota gets, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Mo Guay, and number 33, and the number 33 pick, with reports saying Minnesota was expected to waive Mo Guay. Minnesota cleared space and reshaped the roster before adding LaMelo. You know, look out for the Timberwolves this year. Hopefully it works out. We just need LaMelo to be super healthy. LaMelo's gonna play. You know, LaMelo's gonna get busy, but if he stays healthy, I want to see LaMelo be able to play 35 minutes a game for 73 games, 74 games. All right, Isaiah Stewart went to the Memphis Grizzlies. Devin Carter went to the Atlanta Hawks. And Isaiah Joe went to the Detroit Pistons. All right, so these are the speculative trades. Let me see something real quick. I wanted to refresh my dashboard. I wanted to see if any new news has come in. Check this out real quick. Yeah. Oh, Kawhi returning to Toronto. Shams Charania reports the Los Angeles Clippers are nearing a deal, sending Kawhi Leonard to the Toronto Raptors for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, 1 pick swap, and 2 second-rounders, sources tell ESPN. A return to Canada for the Raptors champion and a 2-time Finals MVP. So the news is it looks like Kawhi is headed back to Toronto. All right, I didn't know that. I just found that out. Let me see if there's anything else. Mavs introduced Dusty May. No, it says Dallas Mavericks introduced new head coach. His name is Dusty May, I think. 11th head coach in team history. It says also trade talks continue for Jaylen Brown. All right, let me get back to my notes. All right, so the big thing I told you guys before is they're talking about LeBron going to Golden State and then them trying to acquire Anthony Davis. And, it would be Steph, Draymond, Anthony Davis, and LeBron. And I think they can make noise if that happens. All right, real quick. We're gonna talk about the other free agency speculations. Free agency starts in 6 minutes. This is why I came up at this time. I would beat the trades, and this way, where we'll be seeing how everything unfolds starting at 6 o'clock. All right, so Kawhi, we already know, is going back to the Raptors. All right, well, at least it's still speculation until they literally announce it. LeBron, there's a chance he's going to end up with the Warriors. Jaylen Brown possibly leaving Boston. Jaylen Brown is probable. Is Jaylen Brown is probably the most important pure trade watch name because he is still under contract, and Boston has reportedly listened. So there's a chance that the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown tandem will be over in Boston. There's things that happen. When he said it was his favorite year, they jumped on it. You know what I'm saying? And even Jaylen Brown's father spoke out to Kendrick Perkins, and him and Kendrick Perkins got a little back and forth going. But Kendrick Perkins was talking spicy. Now, I heard about Jaylen Brown's father, so I looked it up. It turns out that he's a 7-foot professional boxer. Now, if he's a professional boxer, he can't even lay hands on Kendrick Perkins. But we don't want that anyway. You get what I'm saying? No beef, no violence. But I'm just saying, like, usually when Kendrick Perkins is arguing with somebody, it's a way smaller person. This time it's someone not only his size, it's somebody that's a boxer. And I heard Jaylen Brown's father was, I wouldn't say furious, but he was upset at Kendrick Brown for saying that, I believe because Perkins was a Celtic before. And the pops was saying, you was a Celtic, Brown is a Celtic, you should have some love for him and not, I guess throw him under the bus or have things to say about him when y'all both were Celtics before. With that being said, there's more to it, and I have notes on it, but I'm gonna just keep going. It says Jaylen Brown is probably the most important pure trade watch name because he is still under contract, and Boston has reportedly listened. Portland has been viewed as a front runner in some reporting. That would be Jaylen Brown paired up with John Morant, and Damian Lillard and Scoot Henderson. So Portland has been, they might give up one or two of those players to get him though. Portland has been viewed as a front runner in some reporting. Blazers edge cited Sam Amick of the Athletic saying Portland was seen as the front runner, while Boston reportedly asked for up to 4 first-round picks. Portland has names like Scoot Henderson. Shaden Sharp is nasty. Scoot Henderson, I believe, is good, but it just hasn't shown yet. Shaden Sharp is that dude. He's underrated, Shaden Sharp. Tumani Kamara plus picks and swaps, but reportedly want to keep Denny Avdija. Yeah, you can't let... Portland got Denny Avdija. He averaged 26 points per game last year. Avdija is the best player on the Trailblazers right now. And that's a fact. You know what I mean? Look, matter of fact, Let me pull this up real quick. Let me show you guys something about Denny Avdija. All right, people. Denny Avdija is right here. If you look at the number 16, right? They're not gonna let Denny Avdija go. It would be, it would be giving up the best player on their team. If you look, Denny Avdija averaged 24.2 points per game on 46% shooting, knocking down 2 3-pointers per game. He averaged seven rebounds and 6.9 rebounds and 6.7 assists. But that means this dude is averaging 24, 7, and 7 on 47% shooting, and that's including knocking down 2 3-pointers per game. There's no way in the world they're gonna trade Denny Avdija. You know. All right, so we're gonna move on to Drew Holiday. All right, so Drew Holiday is all right. Drew Holiday. This is not as loud as LeBron and AD. Portland now has John Morant, Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, and Scoot Henderson in their backcourt. This is why I said that the Portland Trailblazers, they're guard heavy. So if they're gonna trade for Jaylen Brown, they're gonna get rid of some of them guards for sure. So whether it's Scoot Henderson, Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, somebody's gonna go if they try to get Jaylen Brown. Reuters also noted that the Ja trade could affect ongoing Portland talks with Boston about Jaylen Brown. Drew Holiday becomes important because he is a veteran contender type guard, and Portland may need to balance the roster or use salary to chase a wing like Brown. That's what I'm telling you. Drew Holiday might end up in Boston if Portland goes for the Jaylen Brown. All right, so Jimmy Butler is also a speculative trade. Um, it reads, this one belongs with the Warriors rumor, but it deserves its own slot because Butler could become the guy squeezed by the math. If Golden State tries to create the Curry Green, LeBron AD group, Butler may have to be included in an Anthony Davis trade for salary balance. Reuters reported that the Warriors would prefer to keep Butler, but his contract may be necessary if Davis is the target. NBC Sports Bay NBC Sports Bay Area also framed Butler's salary as a near match for Davis, making him the obvious outgoing contract if Golden State truly chases Anthony Davis. Main Q, matter of fact, let's skip that. All right, Donovan Mitchell. This is another speculative trade. Free agency started 2 minutes ago. So Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley are also a speculative trade from the Cavaliers. The more specific rumor is not really Donovan Mitchell being shopped. The Cavaliers don't want to get rid of Donovan Mitchell. The more specific rumor is Evan Mobley as a theoretical trade for Jaylen Brown. Chris Mannix said the Cavs should consider Mobley for Brown, and people around the league have watched Cleveland as a potential match. Jaylen Brown and Evan Mobley, they don't match up on paper. You get what I'm saying? Jaylen Brown, when Jason Tatum was hurt this year, right? Everybody thought Jaylen Brown was only going to put up 23 points per game. You know, let's stick with the Jaylen Brown topic for a second. I'm gonna check to see if any trades happened in a second also. So, give me 1 second. When Jaylen Brown had to pick up the slack for the Celtics when Jason Tatum went down, the man is right here too. I'm not gonna change the screen, but Jaylen Brown is the 10th best player in the world regarding last season. You know, for the 2025-26 NBA season, Jaylen Brown was the 10th best player in the world, averaging 28.7 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. This on 47% shooting from the field, while including 2 3-pointers being knocked down per game. Jaylen Brown is serious. He proved that he could play at a Jason Tatum level. 28.7 points per game is crazy, and I find it crazy that a player like Jason Tatum would have went out and they would have Jaylen Brown pick up all that slack, and they would still have beef over something he said. If he said it's his favorite season ever, that shouldn't even matter if he went out there and dropped 28.7. You heard the stat line I just said to you. Whether he said it was his favorite season in a losing season or not, did the man go out there and put in that work? And yes, the answer is yes. 28.7 points per game. Let's read that stat line again. 28.7 points per game. He's ranked 10th in the world last year. 7 rebounds, 5 assists. And for a man that always got the ball in his hands, not that bad on the turnovers. Plays 34 minutes per game, and he was in 71 matches, 71 games throughout the season. He didn't get hurt neither. That means he's 30 for now. I just don't really understand all the craziness because he made a statement and but yet he performed like that. You know what I mean? All right. So give me 1 second. I want to check something real quick. They just keep talking about how LeBron is not going back to the Lakers. They're not talking about um him going anywhere else yet. Let me see if there's any breaking news. Have there been any trades since free agency started at 6 p.m.? I mean, they're still talking about the Kawhi Leonard trade to Toronto. They said they're finalizing it. It says, yes, in the NBA, the Los Angeles Clippers are finalizing a major trade to send Kawhi back to Toronto. So Kawhi, it's official. Kawhi is going to be a Toronto Raptor. All right, listen, man, that's all the free agency news I have for you. I'm gonna let you guys go. If anything crazy happens, there's a chance I'm gonna be right back up here. And that's all I got for you regarding the trades and the free agency. It's your boy Spank Dog, man. I'm out of here. Much love.